Hear that? That's the sound of your life. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 6.
Back to our 6 o'clock broadcast here from Mississippi Live Weather. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lompon as we are zooming things in here and focusing in particular on some rain chances that will continue as we progress into this evening and into the overnight hours. Now, storms are producing some heavy rainfall. This is our Crenshaw camera in the background. We'll show you in a minute. Got a kind of ominous look with that one there. But of course, the heavy rain is the main story. Not talking about severe weather at this point. We're marginally cooler and wetter as we go toward tomorrow. I think the rainfall holding temperatures back just a little bit. I mean, listen. This is July. The changes are limited typically. No cold fronts inside anytime soon if you're looking for a meaningful drop in temperatures. As we get to this camera, man, just a minute ago, that looked a lot better there. I'm going to actually go off camera for just a second here. We're going to take a look as I try to adjust this. I can do a better job of that here in just a moment. So as I adjust this camera just a little bit, I just want to show you kind of how wicked sort of looking these clouds are. And again, these are always going to be more a bark than bite in this situation here. To kind of work this way just a little bit to the left on this camera and kind of focus in on the kind of leading edge of that rain cooled air. I mean, it's kind of a rough look things, right? When I was going through storm spotter training when I was a kid, we used to refer to kind of this as a scary looking cloud. Probably a better way to describe it is what's called a shelf cloud, and obviously it is a little rough looking there at this point. You can see where the location there in the corner. As I'm going to quickly change things back over. Crenshaw, pretty much right where my finger is there with that moving toward the Sledge area at this time in Dundee. Of course, a fairly small town there. And the lightning strikes on here, just in this small area you're looking on the screen, about 400 lightning strikes. It does also include some of these thunderstorms back out here closer to the Oxford area. Maybe another way to look at this would be from our camera also in Batesville, right there. Batesville, of course, more in the rainfall and kind of that leftover stuff, what you're seeing there in the Batesville area is that updates, again, just kind of the rain cooled air at this time coming in 79 degrees as of the latest update. As we clear that off and clear the cameras off here for a moment and we wind things out just a little bit, these showers and thunderstorms kind of on the backside of this kind of line that extends back here toward Oxford. You'll be watching that Oxford camera during the last hour there, and the camera in Oxford is that storm kind of moving up from the Water Valley area. Obviously wet roadways. Wet roadways means longer stopping distances if you have to venture out. That's fine. These are just thunderstorms. These are not severe thunderstorms. Just remember that increases the stopping distance. Wet brakes just don't stop as quickly. And your tires, of course, the only place they make contact with the road is down there on the bottom. So that makes it more easy for those to end up slipping off. As we look here toward Oxford, I'm going to put this into motion here for a moment, give you a 1 hour loop. This is heavy rainfall in particular, but you also have this, again, outflow boundary, as often the case this time of year, where you have that rain cooled air. That's what this green line represents back here, stretching from close to Red Bay, Saltillo, New Albany toward the east. But I want to show you here on this is that as we kind of, apparently we've got 2 of them on there for a moment. I'm still learning how to do that. Here we go. I think that's off. We good? We're good. Okay. So notice out here from our storms we have in Hamilton, Alabama, you actually have kind of a second outflow boundary come this direction. So I do think for Red Bay out here toward Golden, locations perhaps up in the Prentiss County, could see some additional development. One of the things that gets interesting in this situation, because again, today it's maybe a wider shot will do a better job of illustrating this here. So you have, again, this area of outflow there. And then you have another one coming in this direction. So the thinking is that in this situation, you're going to have additional development kind of in this zone there. where they come together. And so those will probably, as this all kind of comes together, lead to some later thunderstorms within probably the next hour or so, developing up here closer to Boonville and Corinth, up that direction as these thunderstorms kind of encroach in upon that area. We'll track this a lot more detail coming up here in just a couple of minutes as we kind of look ahead your full forecast here. So as we kind of bring it back here for a moment, and look at the conditions there in Crenshaw again. A lot of low-hanging clouds there as those storms encroaching upon you at this point in time. Look at that motion in the clouds. I'm going to stop for a second. You can just actually see how kind of quickly those clouds are moving there. So there's some wind up there, but not as much closer to the surface. This is one of the pictures that came from the Water Valley area. Michael, with this shot here, I'm going to force this to zoom in just a little bit for you there. And then sometimes, when you see some of those low-hanging clouds, like what we were looking at that camera a second ago, it's easy to go, tornado. That's not the case, even if that is a funnel-shaped cloud. A funnel cloud is a rapidly rotating column of air that is, essentially the cloud, because of the column of air, is pulled like it's closer to the ground, and so it's more visible close to the ground. So even though this might have a shape, it's just a shape, kind of scary looking, but nothing more than that. Temperatures have peaked up to 93 in Tupelo and Amory today, 92 Cleveland, 91 degrees in Greenville since midnight, our high temperatures. And so certainly that helped us to pop up the thunderstorms. We're going to drop down, we'll say about 84 degrees as we look towards 7 p.m., 76 by 10. That rain coverage, though, we keep at least some showers in, even all the way into early tomorrow morning with those temperatures where you're already rain cooled somewhat. They don't drop as quickly. Where you haven't seen that rainfall, of course, that's where that warmer temperature comes in for some of those spots there in the next few hours. Wide shot here doesn't show a lot of relief. If that's what you're hoping for on this, that's just not what we've got. We got to go a long ways up here. We're looking the better part of around 500 miles or so to our nearest front. And you might as well just draw a giant X on that there, because it is not making it through anytime soon. So if you're looking for cooler air from that, it's just not going to end up happening. So as we look at Futurecast here for this evening, we'll continue to have some isolated showers and thunderstorms around this part of the state, northern half of the state. There'll still be also some showers down closer to the Jackson area as well. This brown line represents kind of an area of convergence, what we call a trough. It's not a particularly effective way of producing lift, but not impossible. That'll also kind of help us a little bit. But we do have kind of a little bit of a wave that tries to enhance things a little bit. And that's why I think by Wednesday afternoon and especially Thursday afternoon, our rain chances get a little bit better associated with that. But you can see between now and tomorrow morning, not a lot of activity, I think, during the early part of the day. Rain chances, though, definitely increasing through the day. So from 71 in the morning with light winds, will be 87 by noontime. Rain coverage up to about 60% as we look toward 3 p.m. or so as those storms really kind of get going and developing in the afternoon. And kind of like today. Could there be heavy rainfall? Absolutely, there will be. Could there be some strong wind gusts? Maybe from time to time, but most of these should remain below severe levels with, of course, those isolated areas where the rain really starts adding up in some of those rain gauges. Come up here in 60 seconds, of course, we're looking at the latest Mississippi Live Weather Radar. I think we're going to try to condense this next block a little bit and then go really into storm tracking mode after that. But we will, of course, have the very latest on where those storms are the heaviest coming up here in 60 seconds.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kids should know.
March 24th, 2023 was a normal Friday. We knew the weather was not good, but we needed to take shelter, and we didn't have shelter. My husband and almost 2-year-old daughter, Ethan and Riley, they did lose their lives in the storm. We're still recovering from it. We'll always be recovering from it. Matt LaPon cares about the community. He's not just there to collect a paycheck. I feel like Matt LaPon has proven himself trustworthy.
Right now, from the Mississippi Live Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt LaPon.
And an active afternoon, as is often the case this time of year, there's a lot of storms to track. There's no real true severe thunderstorms at this instant, thankfully. Not that I think anybody's complaining about that. We just have enough fuel out there that this time of year, these storms get going and they just have to kind of burn up the fuel that's laying around, which is what they're in the process of trying to do right now. I'm going to start off kind of looking here out for locations around the Greenwood area, and some thunderstorms have just kind of stayed very consistent there. The reason that's always concerning is that's a scenario where you start really kind of adding up some of those heavier rainfall totals here. So I'm showing a 1 hour loop here. We're going to pause it on the latest scan for a moment. The issue is we definitely have some spots out there near Itabina, 2 inches or so we show in the last 3 hours. So really kind of adding up last 6 hours, similar amounts in some of those locations. They're not alone. I mean, it's pretty consistent out there. We have a lot of folks that kind of qualify like that. And Louisville, Kosciuszko, you know, when you look toward yesterday, some of you were the locations that had some of the heaviest rainfall amounts. That's why if we go back and look over the last 24 hours, that's where some of the numbers are concerning. And we start talking about 4 or 5 inches of rain like we've had out there in Winston County over the last 24 hours. This pattern, when I talk about the rainfall totals, they're just so spotty. And this is why what makes forecasting rainfall amounts so problematic in this situation is because you'll note there's a lot of folks that haven't seen much out here close to Tupelo, Fulton, out toward Tishomingo County. Of course, locations saw a lot of rainfall last week, haven't seen quite as much. And again, out here where we've had some of these storms the last couple hours toward Marks and Sledge, and of course, we had that camera we were looking at just a minute ago there in Crenshaw, some of those locations involved in that. Bring it back here to the latest on Mississippi Live Weather Radar. Our heaviest thunderstorm out here close to Burt and Bethlehem. Let's go and put this in motion over the last hour, get some motion forward. And we talked about you have these 2 outflow boundaries. See these 2 green lines as they slam together there. Eventual development here toward Conrad, Locum, Dumas, Geeville, Jumpertown, Boonville within the next 45 minutes to hour as kind of this comes toward you. So it's a difficult thing to track when we start getting toward this. Let's go ahead and get the speed though, nonetheless. So show the speed going from College Hill toward around Myrtle. We're going about 30, 33 miles per hour or so. So to clear that off, let's get you storm track toward the leading edge of that. I know it's kind of an odd sort of look to it to get the storm track to look like that. There we go, about, let's say 30, 33 miles per hour. And I'm going to go and change this up to where we include some smaller locations and we extend it out closer to 50 miles instead, because we do expect additional development in this zone here. And within the next 30, 45 minutes or so in particular. So we're going to leave this on the latest scan here for a moment. I think we can click that on now. There we go. And so again, Mitchell, Dumas, Locum, kind of all in the path of that there. We're looking at Bethany at 617, Cotton Plant 620 or so, Bluff about 624, Geeville about 629, toward Mitchell I mentioned about 638, 639 there, Osborne Creek as that moves toward the northeast. I'm going to change it back over here. We're going to reduce kind of the size of the locations involved as well to get you a longer track there. And we could actually have some development for you in Burnsville and Iuka a little quicker because it's kind of coming at you from both angles at this moment. Here's what I mean by that. We clear this off, kind of widen this out. We have this area kind of back to the west. And let's put a loop on this as well. And you see it's kind of encroaching in. You see these 2 green lines and that one there toward Red Bay. This is all going to kind of come in here closer to Boonville, Corinth, Iuka. So while I don't think we're talking about significant severe weather, I think a couple stronger wind gusts, if this can continue to focus that, could be a possibility within the next hour kind of in that zone there. Speaking of Red Bay, some of those storms kind of moving there, encroaching on Red Bay from the southwest. Note it southwest and southeast. I mean, the lift there coming in from the southwest along Highway 19 near Atwood, where that one's kind of lifting. I think that's probably going to go more toward Old Burleson out here toward Burnout and Dempsey as opposed to directly over Red Bay. But the fact that we have those 2 areas there kind of encroaching in means we probably expect some additional development there closer to Red Bay associated with that, and eventually Belmont. So we'll track that. I'll say the same speed. And this time of year, it's kind of like whack-a-mole trying to figure out, which of these to end up tracking. I'm going to say about 30 miles per hour, and that might be overdoing it just a little bit. We show Red Bay at 621. Of course, current time there in Red Bay, I'm going to have to move my clock, 614, so it's pretty close to you right now. At 630 in Golden, we're looking 634 there in Belmont and about 647 up in Tishomingo. Certainly watching that potential there. And then wind things back out and looking back toward down south toward Canton. I don't think this is going to hold together. I do think this stuff near Greenwood will, and that's obviously why we kind of led with that discussion there. So as we go into this evening, looking at rain chances over the next few days, as you might imagine, oh, nope, I jumped all the way to the beginning. Let's make sure we're at the right spot here. Give me a moment. And the rain chances here, there we go, over the next few days, remaining fairly high, obviously, through your Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I can make some arguments around 50% on that coverage all the way through the weekend. Some projections go a little heavier, believe it or not, on Sunday now. They kind of trended back up a little bit. Spotty storms, that's the way this goes. The predictability on them remains pretty low, all things considered. High temperatures, though, of course, today we were mid-90s. We are cooler for your Wednesday, for your Thursday, and we owe that slightly cooler weather to the fact that, we're just going to have enough rainfall around. It limits the high temperature. Do I think that we'll still have some spots 91, 92 degrees? Absolutely, especially if you can miss out on some of those showers. The heat index over 100 for those spots as well. Hour forecast for tomorrow. We're 73 in the morning. We're 87 by noon and 88 degrees for tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. But again, I think that high around the 90-degree point and rain coverage up to around 60% in the afternoon on your Wednesday. Here's a look at Futurecast, very latest updated one. The cool thing about Futurecast and our HRRR model here is we get a new look at this each hour. What you will notice is it does show at 7 p.m. there up here closer to, say, locations up around Boonville, Corinth. It does have additional development in this batch of thunderstorms up here. So I think it's grabbing onto the same thing we were looking at a moment ago there, the possibility, and then some of those stronger thunderstorms, heavier thunderstorms back out here to Oxford as well. These do continue to stay somewhat heavy, 8:30, 9, maybe even 10 p.m. this evening, and then mostly diminishing after that. As we kind of zoom things in just a little bit more here, still some lighter showers for Chula and Belzona back out there. But I mean, it's mainly in the lighter greens by 11:30 to midnight. Couple rumbles, not impossible out of this, including a few back there west of Kosciuszko as well, and a couple trying to move out from Arkansas. But again, more than not, these are going to be fairly weak, all things considered. So low 70s to begin tomorrow morning. That is right on target for what we typically expect for this time of year. At about 70 in Hamilton, 71 degrees in Eupora, Grenada, and 73 for Cleveland and for Greenville. So as we go toward around 7:30 in the morning, still some light showers. More often than not, it's going to be dry for your morning commute, but there will be some rainfall out there that we will be tracking. Make sure, of course, you have that Mississippi Live weather app free and available for all those different devices. Still waiting on the Roku and all those other apps. They're coming. I promise. I saw a person showed me what the app was looking like, showed it working on the screen earlier today. So it should be dropping today. But if it's not, I apologize for that. We'll get there very soon. It's going to be awesome. I think you're really going to like it once it gets there. And of course, you can put it on the bigger screen that way. But through 9 a.m., through noontime tomorrow, again, a few spotty storms out there by that point in Greenville, trying to work their way toward the east. As we go toward noontime, a little heavier there toward around Shelby and Clarksdale. More of these, again, they're small. These are not big storms. I should kind of emphasize that as well. When you start looking at these, and we start thinking, well, what, is it severe? That's only showing that about 7 miles across. And that's a model, but the takeaway being that we are not expecting these to be particularly impressive thunderstorms on any sort of size and level with this. They're just remain fairly spotty storms. So as we look to 1:30, 2 o'clock, again, fairly spotty. But if they don't move much, and I do still show a decent amount of movement on them, but when they sit there, that's when you start getting those 3-inch rainfall totals over the course of the 24-hour period if you get them to sit there. So I think we have enough movement that most of these hopefully aren't going to be doing that kind of stuff. Still about 50, maybe 60% on that rain coverage there through around 5 p.m. or so. And as we head in about 5:30, 6 o'clock, again, the heaviest starting to move into Alabama, at least based on current positioning at this time. So high temperatures, about 88 degrees in Water Valley, 89 degrees in Grenada, 90 for Greenwood and Belzona, about 87 Clarksdale and Tunica. The heat index, again, lower 90s to, as you'll note here on the animation. Watch how this kind of goes there through into the evening. Some spots will be middle, upper 90s, and maybe a few spots up to around the triple-digit point. But I think that rainfall arriving early enough that could limit that just a little bit. So here's a look at our strike model. Continues showing again isolated thunderstorms into tomorrow evening. We lose the heat of the day. They largely go away, but there'll still be a few lingering around into the pre-dawn hours of early morning Thursday. Thursday, as we go toward the afternoon time period there, again, 9 p.m. or so, 9 a.m., not a ton of activity there, but we will again redevelop some thunderstorms. I know, that's as close as our hope for any sort of cooler conditions or a mix-up in the pattern comes from, and just not coming. It's still kind of stuck to the north. So great pool weather in that it's going to be hot. Not great pool weather in that it's not going to be as hot as it could be. And then, of course, we're going to have those rain showers kind of mess it up. So I guess they're going to be wet either way. Obviously, if you're close enough to hear that thunder, you're close enough to be struck by lightning. So keep that in mind. Not going negative on that there, but again, some isolated thunderstorms. Still, I think we'll be talking about 50 to 60% on that rain coverage into Thursday. And one thing that I note there, notice how some of these aren't really moving very quickly, kind of almost back building there. That's where, again, that spotty flash flooding risk remains a possibility with this. High temperatures on Thursday, we're looking at somewhere in the upper 80s, again, maybe low 90s. The rain quantity there limiting us just a little bit related to that. So hour by hour forecast on your Wednesday, we're 60% on that rain coverage on the overall portion of the day, with a peak coverage somewhere in the afternoon. By 5 p.m., we're looking at around 50% coverage, so probably diminishing there, 30% as we head into the evening, but starting off in the low 70s initially there and peaking around the 90-degree point, which is just a hint below what we expect for this time of year. We're 60% on the rain chance there as we go into your Thursday, 91 degrees with about 50% coverage for your Friday, Saturday into this upcoming weekend. Temperatures do increase a little bit more as the confidence in rainfall diminishes somewhat, with hopefully the rain chances becoming slightly more spotty as we look toward the first part of next week. We're going to look at the far extended forecast, as we often do, and we're going a little more in depth on some of those storms that we're tracking out there, answering your questions as Mississippi Live Weather at 6 continues right after this.
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
I know you're going through a lot. I wonder if you know that we can get help. Let's see how far we can go. Love, your mind.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. But only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, welcome back here at Mississippi Live Weather at 6. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. Current time about 6:22. And one of the things a lot of folks have clamored about, wanting to see, we do have on the app. Unfortunately, it doesn't have it like on a graph or an hour by hour, at least not yet. That's something we're working on, but UV index is there. Relatively low this evening. At this point, of course, sun angle going down, so that's not a shock. That is the case at this time. But one of the things that kind of contributes to that, of course, are some of the rain chances here. And we look at the chances next couple days. I want to introduce you to a graphic. This is complex, maybe too complex. Tell me in the comments here as I'm looking on this about this as well. Someone asking, what about the Roku app? We're hoping this evening. I've seen live video of it working today, so hopefully that starts showing up here pretty soon. I know that when it comes out, by the way, on the Roku app, you're going to have to search for Mississippi Live. That's going to be it. Here's why. Roku, a lot of times you say weather at the end of something. It's like, we don't do weather. So Mississippi Live is what you should have to search for when the time comes, but I think it's the search optimization that is taking a little extra time here. So apologize for that. But I want to introduce this Jetstream graphic that's so much more. What we've got going on here, and here's why I'm going to utilize this. And a lot of times this segment, when we talk about the extended forecast, far extended forecast, that's what we're going to look at here. We have the disturbances that maybe you're used to sometimes seeing here, represented by these lines. Those white lines that we have there allows us to see high pressure, for example, these two ridges there, this zone, this weak area in between, we sometimes call a shear axis. That's what I like to call it there, where it's just kind of in this case, it's kind of sort of a trough there as well. But then we also, again, wind speeds. We have this mid-level lift, or what meteorologists call vorticity, absolute vorticity to be in particular. And that's one of the things that's a contributing factor when we start talking about some of these rain chances in the next few days. Again, we are kind of caught between these two areas of ridging, and in between that, there's just this area of shear. See how that is sticking there? Kind of over top of us. That area of lift, not truly, if I put in every line, you would see a little bit of a dip from a trough here, but it's just kind of an area of enhancement where it's just a little extra oomph to try to keep things, get things going up. And so that's the reason why between now and Thursday, as that's kind of over top of us, we'll have some of at least these limited rain chances. You know, if that kind of falls apart a little bit by Friday, that's why I tweak that percentage down somewhat. The green representing still some precipitation on what we call the GFS model. It's Global Forecast System. Sometimes we call it the American model. I would not say it's the most accurate model that you can get, but it does go one of the longest distances in the future. And it gives us just a rough outlook on how things look related to this here. So you can see how that little bit of shear or lift or vorticity doesn't show up as much on your Friday. So a more limited coverage, I'd say, on the rain and storm chances at that point here. But our ridge back to the east is going to start building more toward us as we head toward next week. That'll start opening the Gulf up a little bit more, and the real true stickiness starts typically coming back into play when that is the case. See how that's spinning there? And that could potentially start bringing us, again, clockwise spin is high pressure. So again, the direction that an analog clock would go there, counterclockwise, low pressure, and that area where there's a little bit more of that low pressure, or at least a loft, more of that troughing, more to the west of us as we go in the latter part of the week and first part of next week. And that's one of the factors that, again, you can still see rain chances showing up because we just had so much moisture that when we heat up, you eventually reach what's called the convective temperature, you start bubbling up the thunderstorms. So it's not a true, nothing that's going to happen ridge, but it is one that's trying to keep us a little bit clearer, we'll say, as we look into next week. But you can see by Tuesday, that rain coverage becoming somewhat more limited, but we don't completely eliminate it, and just back toward a Wednesday, hoping that maybe at some point there we can get a front to kind of come in here. You kind of see that shift. That would be a front with maybe some marginally cooler temperatures, but this is not this Thursday. This is a week from Thursday. So we do expect this to change. And if you're looking for it drier, just not the case as far as that is concerned. So that's your kind of look at the extended forecast there. A couple ways we can also show that. I'm going to come back to Storm Track Mississippi Live Weather Radar. I will eventually learn what to call it. But when we look at the temperature outlook here for the next, as you can see, July 14th to July 18th there, we expect that, for most of us, there's pretty good chance, we'll say technically I think it's 40% chance there of above normal conditions during that time period there. If you look at the farther extended time period, more likely pretty close to our average for this time of year. So if this were to say cooler, it doesn't mean it's necessarily cool. It just means not extreme. That makes sense? So it's, pretty close to what we expect, which is lower 90s for highs in the same summertime stickiness. Now, rainfall, we find ourselves again in that zone where we're probably going to see some rainfall all across the region, about a third of a chance there, 33% chance of above normal conditions. We go more in the extended there, and we stay in that zone. So if you're looking for dry, this is not a pattern that has anything that kind of resembles that for us. We are likely well into the extended forecast to stay fairly wet, as you saw a moment ago there, looking at things. We're going to do one more over on Storm Track, Mississippi Live Weather Radar. By the way, this is the same thing that happens with the Gulf of Mexico versus Gulf of America. There are just certain phrases that are in my brain that as I'm thinking of the next thing I'm going to say, fall out of my mouth. So I will eventually learn that as well. But in the meantime, I named this thing, so we might as well use the name, Mississippi Live Weather Doppler Radar. So we are looking in Union County at this point here with our heaviest storm at this time here. On your screen, we show about 170 lightning strikes over the last few minutes. And this is, expanding exactly like we said it would, where we had those boundaries of rain-cooled air kind of coming this way. That's what's encroaching on you, Boonville, Rienzi. So again, heavy rainfall, absolutely with this. In fact, when we look at some of the rainfall rates related to this, the rainfall rate where you see the pinks there, obviously very high, 7 inches an hour if it were to stay in place for an hour, which it doesn't stay in place that long. It's a much lesser period of time. But yeah, so very, very heavy rainfall as this comes in, arguably blinding rainfall. One way to probably check that out would be from our camera that is, we're not quite in that there in Blue Springs, but we're looking up the road there back toward that. A bunch of different directions we're looking. It's the lower right-hand part of the screen there that we're kind of zooming in on. That's that heavy rainfall, maybe even a little bit of hail with that there. We're going to check our threat tracker here in just a minute to take a look at that. But Blue Springs 82 as of the latest update. Winds out of the south, as you can see there, southwest at 10 miles per hour. So those storms trying to build in more lightning with those heavy rainfall as well. I'm going to see if Pontotoc has a shot up north toward that storm there. Yep, we're looking north into it. And so that's kind of the low-hanging clouds there. The rain kind of forces those down closer to the ground. Obviously kind of a dark gray sort of look there with low 80s in the Pontotoc area at this instant as well. Let's clear that off. Back over here to Mississippi Live Weather Radar and bringing it back in particular to the rainfall mode out of the Columbus area. Obviously, when you start seeing that DBZs, and from time to time it'll pop that up, that's just saying how reflective it is. The more reflective, the more likely it is going to be heavy rainfall, but obviously some hail potential as well. So you can see those 3D, those thunderstorms. That one there on the north and west side there of New Albany could potentially, let's take a little closer look at that there, could potentially have a little bit of hail in it. I'll do severe threats before we go too deep into it. Yeah, there we are. That also says potential close to Myrtle there, maybe some 1-inch hail. This tends to overdo the size in this kind of pattern just a little bit, but I wouldn't at all be shocked to see some at least small hail coming up out of this. So let's go back to the 3D element on this, and we're going to cut into this thunderstorm here to get an idea on just how tall it is. The height of it tells us, how intense. As we kind of cut through that there are a few spots as I kind of, unfortunately, I still have that on there. I don't think I can clear that off without taking that. But I think this is just really heavy, blinding rainfall more than anything with some small hail potential out of that. I'm going to check our chat with the National Weather Service just to make sure. Latest update, 30 mile per hour winds out of Oxford at the top of the hour. Have not had a lot of reports since then. One thing I do want to check as well are power outages, because we tend to sometimes, when you have as much lightning as we have, sometimes you get some power outages. We don't really show hardly any in the area. We do have a few out here when you get closer to Yazoo City and out there toward Belzona. We show about, that's behind me on the map there, pull over, about 300 lightning strikes in that area there. So we come back over here to the rainfall mode on this, and I think we'll probably try to wrap things up. Again, the Greenwood storms aren't moving. There is some flooding potential out of those, so certainly something that we're going to have to watch. As far as storm reports, does not look like we've had many, though we did have a report there. Let's talk about this. About 3:38 of a tree reported down on Highway 46 in Clay County. Should have had that on our map a little earlier. I apologize for that. Let's make this probably a 4-hour loop. The reason this is worth going back and checking is sometimes you can get an idea of what it was capable of. Yeah, and you can see that was that storm that eventually moved toward Aberdeen, and it has now honestly got up there closer to Red Bay. So at least one tree reported down there out of that. A lot of times law enforcement with those reports, appreciate all the folks that do help us out with those reports as well. We have not seen as much development, by the way, back out here toward Red Bay. We're watching that area where the rain cool there is coming this way. Maybe it's a little more used up out that way. Certainly still building along this boundary for the New Albany area, and that rainfall pretty blinding likely up toward New Albany as well. So we're going to wrap things up here on Mississippi Live Weather. I'm going to double check some of your questions at here. No tornadoes. So someone was asking, Ashley was asking, there are no tornadoes out of this, despite the fact that we are going to have some low-hanging, gnarly looking clouds from time to time as we come back out there toward the camera that is in Blue Springs. I kind of zoom it in, the Mississippi Department of Transportation camera there. There could be some low-hanging sort of stuff on that. No tornadoes out of what we're seeing here. Just heavy rainfall and very windy in Poolville. Appreciate that. Appreciate y'all in Tillatoba. The storm heading to Tremont, we'll look at that in more detail here in a second. That has not been particularly effective on that part there. And I appreciate that someone, Sharon was mentioning the quality of Skycam network. Appreciate the folks there. North Mississippi Storm Chasers, we're partnering with them. They are adding those cameras all the time. And we do at least have some reports of hail coming in from New Albany. Whitney mentioning that. I'm going to reply here for a moment so we can get an answer if we can. How large is it? Question mark. As this becomes interactive, this is your broadcast here. As we're trying to figure out what's going on to hopefully help y'all. There we go. So I think overall that's interesting. So how large? We'll wait to see if we can get that information here in a minute. But perhaps again, some hail possible out of this up in the New Albany areas. I bring it back over here to our threats. The hail potential does look like it has dropped just a little bit, so not likely a large hail producer. Well, I have blabbed all the way to 6:33 without the missus here to tell me, okay, wrap it up. So I think we're going to wrap up things here on Mississippi Live Weather. If we do get something more significant, we will come back on, possibly do an update. I will say, again, as far as live updates are concerned, the plan is to continue to be life-threatening weather as well as tornadoes. That's, and I think in both cases, pretty unlikely with the setup tonight that we get into that kind of situation. So I don't know that we're going to be doing a lot of additional live coverage, but share your weather pictures with us. We appreciate that. And we'll have updates again, looking toward tomorrow's rain and storm chances once again tonight at 10 o'clock. But thank you for joining us on Mississippi Live Weather here at 6.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back. Dad! You probably don't remember what you told me.
That was perfect.
But I heard every word.
One in 10 kids vape. Each vape pod can contain the same amount of nicotine as a pack of cigarettes.
The Health Class Film Guy isn't the best person to talk to your kid about vaping.
Got a few minutes?
You are. Talk to your child about vaping today.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. But only you can prevent wildfires.